Welcome to the Superset Podcast, episode 53. This is Crystal O'Keefe.
And this is Tom O'Keefe. Hello.
Hi.
We are recording this over July 4th weekend.
Yes.
But we have done no fireworks.
None.
So I saw a thing that said a lot of companies, a lot of like different area municipalities, governments, counties, whatever, are switching to drone shows instead of fireworks shows.
Is this one of your jokes?
No, that they
I can't tell.
Have you seen like when people take all the drones and do them like remote control and sync, and they can like create images in the sky? And it's really cool. And so I was just like, oh, what are
they loud?
No, that's the thing. They're drones, so they don't make any noise at all. But they still light up the sky.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of places are probably switching to them because they don't have to worry about upsetting animals or people with PTSD or what have you. And so, but you still get the effect of lighting up the sky, and it's my guess is it's probably maybe cheaper, maybe not in the short term, but I bet you long term it's cheaper. Fireworks are expensive, certainly safer.
I would be interested to know how long. Why hasn't Disney started doing it?
See, and that I was about to say, I didn't mention this when we were at Disney, but I wonder when Disney will incorporate drones instead of fireworks, because it has to save them a ton of money, because, you know, the cost of a drone show on one day versus a fireworks display on one day is, I don't know that that's going to be a money saver, but the cost of a drone show every day versus a fireworks display every day, I would think would almost have to save the money.
Do they do fireworks in all the parks, or is it just Magic Kingdom and Epcot?
So Magic Kingdom and Epcot, and Animal Kingdom has... Animal Kingdom, I think, normally closed by the time it gets dark, so I don't think they have anything. And in the Hollywood Studios sometimes does, because remember we watched a thing where they projected it on. It was the Great Movie Ride at the time.
Yeah.
And then there's also they have Fantasmic there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's baked in pyro to the show. I don't think it's actual fireworks, but that would be a great addition for like Hollywood Studios, like a great differentiator, right? Instead of fireworks, come see the drone show.
Yeah.
So if Disney's looking to hire anyone, I know people right now are like, I thought this was about Tonal.
Oh, yeah. We have a podcast about Tonal. We do.
What are they talking about?
Don't worry.
We'll still talk about Tonal. We're doing, both of us are doing Sculpt and Shred. Yes,
but you're doing... You're doing the upper body.
And you're doing lower.
I am. So it's been fascinating how some of our workouts are like really similar, first of all. And second of all, how they are so incredibly painful.
Yeah. So I had one the other day. I'm really bad. I've talked before about how like I don't pay attention. I like Tonal because I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
So like when people are like day 12, I have no idea what day it was. So don't ask me. But there was a thing where it had me doing a racked squat to bench. Mm-hmm. So you do a rack squat, but you don't go all the way down. You just hit the bench and pop back up. That's the first time I've ever been given that move in my 3.5 years of Tonal at this point.
Yeah.
And so I saw it pop up and I was like...
We even had to talk about it.
Yeah, I was like, well, that looks really lame.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, that looks like the old lady version of a rack squat.
And I was like, yeah, because you don't sit down as deep.
Yeah, you don't go down as far, and then you're sitting down. Like, you can sit down. Like, well, it's like, you know, like... Pff. And then I did it.
And boy, is that not true.
Yeah. My apologies to old ladies everywhere.
I tell you what, the way... Because you're just supposed to tap it with your tushy. You're not supposed to like stay there and hang out.
The thing is, if you stay there, it's like it's its own punishment, right? Because it's harder to get up.
And because the racked squat's what makes it hard, because it's pushing down on you.
So like if you get in your mind like, oh, I can sit here for a second.
No.
Oh, you just made things even worse. That's like, I bet you I can finish this paper in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like that.
But the thing I love about this is like first of all, like I take progress photos. I've been taking progress photos, and I can actually tell that like my booty's getting lifted. The peaches truly be peachin'. And also, I have noticed that like I feel like all over, and my pictures showed this. It's like getting leaner, even though my food hasn't changed, and I eat pretty clean.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's incredibly effective for people who are looking for a good summer program. It's hard. I have not felt like running on other days. Like it takes a lot out of your legs, like a lot.
Yeah. And I've had some days as doing upper, because you still do lower body stuff, just like on the lower, you still are going to do some upper. But yeah, I've had some days after lower body where it's just like the next day, it's like a woof. And so I'm like, what would this be like if I was actually doing the lower body stuff? And that, like, if that's what I feel like after lower body on an upper body focused program, I can't even imagine what it would feel like on the lower body version.
It is intense because my hamstrings are still yelling at me. They're still barking. Yeah. But I also went on a...
Because they're hamstrings.
I also went on a hike yesterday, and it was there were some pretty hilly portions. Mm-hmm. And so my hamstrings were not happy every step of that as well. And I feel like that's probably why they're so sore today still. But I feel like it's super effective. Like, I don't like when I do a workout and I don't feel like it's worth my time, because you know all workouts kind of suck to a degree, right? Like
you don't got to tell me.
I know, right? Yeah. So you still got to do the work, and you still feel like but then if you're sore the next day, the good sore, not the I can't move sore.
Right,
I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, not you actually injured yourself.
Right. But just the kind of sore that's like, ooh, accomplished. And I mean, I'm starting the 3rd week and I'm still feeling sore after these workouts. I love that because I actually feel like check mark getting done. Like, I love that. So if you guys haven't tried it, I highly recommend that you do. It is really good. And I think I'm going to do the upper body after this, but I don't know. They keep coming out with new content that like catches my eye, but I could see flipping and doing the lower body too. I mean, the upper body too.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, who are we talking to this week?
We are talking to Ash Wilking this week, Coach Ash. And wow, what a fabulous interview. It was so great to get to know her and to talk to her about the different programs she's done and like her whole backstory. Just wow.
Absolutely. So, and then of course we have other things to discuss.
Yeah. We've got some new features that hit this week too.
We did. Yeah. And Tony Horton is back. People will be very excited about that. Very excited. So before we get into all that, shameless plugs, don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you find a podcast, you can find us. If you have other friends who love their tonal that just can't get enough of it, maybe let them know that we're out there, right? Share an episode on your feed, timeline, whatever, Instagram panel. I don't know. Your Snapchatter.
Feed.
Your Snapchatter.
Snapchatter.
Something like that.
Sure.
So people can check it out. It's also probably a great way to let people, if you have friends who are on the fence and feel like they don't know enough before pulling the trigger on an item like tonal, we're also a good introduction for them, right?
Absolutely.
So, you can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/supersetpodcast. And then also we have a YouTube channel. All these live on YouTube, on youtube.com/theclipout, the name of our other show, but these are there as well. So there's all that. Let's dig in, shall we?
We shall.
New tonal features.
Custom workout sharing. People love building their custom workouts, but they weren't able to share them with people. And now they can.
Yeah. Now, before you go and say, I don't have it yet, please.
I don't have it yet.
Go to your app store and make sure you have the newest update.
But I don't have it yet.
Zip it. Listen.
Okay. I'm listening.
Go to your app store.
I don't have it yet.
Go to your app store and look to see if you have the latest download of Tonal, because they're rolling it out, and they do that slowly because they've got so many users. You have to do these things slowly, and this is something that people have been asking for since day one when we got the Tonal back in 2018. So it's been a long time coming, and this is something so many people have asked for. I love that Tonal is still putting out features that the members are asking for.
For sure.
This is very, very exciting. So why is this a big deal? This is a big deal because you can create any workout you want and share it with other people. This is so huge. So Tom, I could truly make you miserable by sharing workouts that I create just for you.
I've already had a wife who made me miserable. Why? Don't do that.
Okay, I won't. I'll have somebody else do it.
I don't know if that's the solution I was looking for.
I'm just teasing. But like you can really hone in on your specific like trouble areas, or maybe you have to avoid certain muscles. So like you can make your own workout, or let's say that you have ankle straps and you want to use that and you want to be able to create off tonal moves and things that aren't included in the tonal library. You can do that. So there's all these options for you, and I love it.
Absolutely. And speaking of custom By Tonal is coming out of beta.
I am so happy to see that this is coming out of beta. People have just been so ecstatic about this one. So this is all trainer. It's all on trainer experience that combines custom built workouts, but it has the ease and the expertise of coach-led pre-programmed content. So you get to really focus on putting your time into the muscle and not your workout. And I think that these are also really good add-ons to existing programs. So let's say for a lot of people out there that say, I want to be in 2 programs at once. This is a way to add a really tough workout to an existing program very easily. I love it.
Are these the platinum thing?
Yes.
Okay, because I was doing some of those and they came in really handy for me. Like when we were getting ready to go out of town for a week, and I was like, well, I don't want to start a program and do a week and then take a week off, right? Like that feels weird. And then you come back and you hit week 2 and you don't feel like you're geared up for it, right? Because you have kind of quote unquote missed week 1. And so I found myself just looking for one-offs, and which I don't typically do. And I stumbled into these by accident and was doing the platinum ones.
But they were really tough.
They were. And
it was the platinum 6, I believe.
Yes, that's what it was. And so it was, but those were no joke. Like that was.
Well, if you want to find all the custom By Tonal workouts, you can just go to, on your trainer, go to Explore, Filter, Format, and Custom By Tonal. Very easy to find.
Or if you want to do the one I did, just look for Platinum.
Also good.
Not to be confused with a gentleman's club.
Oh, my God.
I used to work next to one.
I know,
that
Tom.
That was called Platinum. So but I worked next to it.
Not in it.
I didn't go in it. I mean, one shift. And I just didn't get the kind of tips I was expecting. And so I had to move along.
But they had good food, I hear.
They did have good food. Like it was counterintuitive. I would tell bands this all the time. So I worked at the rock club that was next door to it. And the bands would come in and they were like, where can I get good food? And I was like, believe it or not, the strip club next door has good food. And they'd be like, you're so full of it. And every band member would come, or every band I sent over there that would actually go would come back and be like, well, I'll be damned. That was good food. And we used to always joke, and you don't mind if you find a hair in your food.
Oh, gross.
I remember I sent the lead singer of a band named Zebra over there. For the classic rock nerds, you might recognize that name.
That's going deep, Tom.
Keyword might.
Yeah.
And Randy Jackson from the band Zebra, not the guy from American Idol.
Okay.
And he's a big vegan, right? And for years, I mean, he has songs from the 70s about animal rights stuff. Like he's always been a vegan. And I was like, I've heard they've got really good vegan food over there. And he's like, nuh-uh. And he comes back and he's like, holy cow. And every time he'd come back, he's like, I'm going next door to get that vegan burger. I don't know what they're doing, but I dig it.
Oh, that's great. It's a great story.
New tonal content.
Tony Horton is back.
People are so excited about this.
They are. They love them some Tony Horton.
They do. So this one is called the Triple Threat Dynamic Gains.
Ooh. Triple threat. You got upper, lower.
No.
I don't know what's next.
No, you're gonna boost strength, muscle, and stamina. Boom, boom, boom.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this is really cool because you're gonna do heavy weight, but you're gonna mix in eccentric mode and chains mode for building power. But then you also are going to have 2 upper body workouts and 1 lower body workout, and each session is going to last between 35 and 40 minutes. Woof.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's only 3 because like I feel like this one, when you're adding eccentric and chains, I feel like 4 might be a bit much for this one. I think 3 is a good number of days.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
that's
makes
my
sense.
thought.
I bet it for the people that like Tony Horton, it has to be very exciting. Like if you have maybe because you have a tonal moved on from Tony Horton stuff, right? But then to still have them pop up on the new thing that you're on, that has to be a blast. Like, I mean, obviously it never worked out before Tonal, so I know the name Tony Horton mainly because of his coffee and donut shop in Canada.
No.
Not him. No, not him.
That's Tim Hortons.
Oh, his brother Tim.
Yeah,
I get them mixed up. Yes. And they went different ways.
Remember the one time we ate there and you tried those weird potatoes and you loved them? The French fries?
Yeah, with poutine.
Yeah.
Which sounds like
something bad.
It sounds like the noise you make in when like an old timey person spits in a cartoon. Poutine. And yeah, I was like, that sounds disgusting. And then it was like, holy crap, Canada has it figured out. First socialized medicine, now this? I guess you need it. Shoving all that poutine down people's throats.
Isn't it like gravy?
It's basically gravy on your French fries, which I'm like, well, I mean, I like gravy on mashed potatoes, so I guess this isn't a radical turn of events, except you've turned it into a fast food delight.
But you sure loved it.
I did love it. Remember how I was invisible in Canada?
I do remember that.
I've never experienced anything like that before or since.
That was weird.
We were walking through the airport.
And everybody talks about how nice Canadians are.
And we were walking through the airport in Canada, and because we were just staying there overnight to catch a cruise. And so we kept going back and forth in the airport because our hotel was at the airport. We were just like, why make it harder than it needs to be?
Right.
And so we were walking around like in the little shopping area and the restaurants, and people just kept walking right into me.
I mean, not like bumping his shoulder, like full on body slam. This occurred no less than 3 times in 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I think it might have been more.
Like I said, no less.
Yeah, and I was just like, what the hell is happening? Like what? I don't understand.
Also, you would make a comment and they wouldn't even address it. Like they didn't even hear you.
Right. I'm just like, I don't understand why no one can see me in Canada. It's not like I was wearing some sort of anti-Canadian propaganda.
Not at all. We were so happy to be there. We had the most beautiful room, the view. It was amazing.
The runway.
It was gorgeous.
I was wearing my Robin Sparkles t-shirt, so Canada should have loved me. So I don't understand what was happening, but it was crazy.
It was crazy.
So speaking of new content, remember when we were speaking of new content? There's Tag Team, not the rap duo from the 90s.
Okay.
But there's Tag Team Drop Sets and Sweat.
Okay, so this is going to be with coaches Tim and Tanisha, and it's going to be compound lifts, plyometrics, and of course you're going to have 2 coaches. So this is a full body workout, and it has everything you need to build lean muscle and burn fat. Now, when we talk to Tim Landicho in a very short time, couple weeks, you're going to hear all about this workout and how it went down with Coach Tanisha.
Yes, and if you're like me and saying, what is a plyometric?
You're going to learn all about that too.
You will learn all about them on the next episode.
Yes.
So stay tuned. Also, we have the 3x3 circuit HIIT.
Now, Tom, this is a good one for you on your days where you don't you're not lifting,
right,
and you want to get a break and do some cardio. This is a HIIT fix. It's 25 minutes, so in, out, and it's perfect for all users, whether you're beginner to advanced. 3 exercises, 3 rounds. Now, it sounds easy, but they're duration-based sets. So you can scale it to your fitness level. So you can work at a pace that makes you a little breathless right out of the gate, and then activate burnout mode if you need assist on the final kneeling overhead press. Woof.
Yeah.
That's Coach Christina. That one's tough.
Yeah, they pretty much all make me breathless right out of the gate.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if it's just because I'm female, but like my upper body strength is always like where it's the hardest. Like, whenever I have to do those overhead lifts, oh my gosh, I hate them so much. What's next?
Cardio with a kick.
Okay. So this is Coach Ash. And so we're going to be talking to Coach Ash. Coach Ash in this episode. This is a kickboxing inspired cardio session, and you get to practice squat jacks, and bounds along with kicks and punches to add some flavor. This is another good one for you, Tom, when you're looking for cardio.
It's great if you're in a bad mood. I don't like the things where I'm punching and kicking.
Well,
I always just feel like I'm like, whenever I throw a punch, I'm reminded of how poorly I throw a punch.
I really like to use, I have my kick, my bag, my punching bag. And
Right.
I really like to use that. I feel like it's a good way to actually feel like I'm kicking or punching something. Air is not good for me.
I get that. Yeah, I've never done the bag. I just punch the air, but it just feels silly.
You should try the bag sometime.
I mean, I know people love it. Like, I'm not disparaging it.
I know.
It's just not my jam. Like, I just feel silly, and it's
That's the nice thing about Tonal.
Yeah.
If that's not your jam, you go to the next one. What's
Exactly.
next?
Custom by Tonal, so you can customize to your jam's delight.
And I know you like these. So these are some new ones they just added to the lineup. These are all 15 minutes. So 15-minute muscle. It's a whole series of them.
Okay.
You have one for your chest and biceps, one for back and triceps, one for legs and shoulder, and one for abs. This is perfect if you're a person who likes a 4-day breakout of all the muscle groups, 15 minutes in and out. This is fabulous.
So this is probably good if you feel like you're in a spot where you're happy and you're not looking to add a bunch of muscle, but you don't want to lose any ground either.
All right.
You can just be like 15 minutes a day.
Yeah,
Boom,
this is
done.
a good pump, and it's really strength building. So you can add these on. This is good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Checking in with the Tonal team.
Joining us today via the magic of Zoom tube, all the way from the magical country of Tonalvania. It's Ash Wilking. Hello.
Hi. You rendered her speechless 2 seconds in.
All right.
That's a record, Tom.
What's he gonna come up with now? What's he gonna come up with?
Hi,
Love it.
Ash. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi guys. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you here. It is so nice to meet you. I want to get right into this because you just launched a new program, Strength for Cyclists, and I am pumped about it. Tell us more about it. And
Wait, is this the one I already did?
Yay.
Cycle strength?
no,
I did
that
the-
was Cycle
Oh,
Strength.
you have
You know
you
what?
ladies
I
in
am
your
very
cycles. There's so many of them.
I'm very proud of you for becoming informed on everything we have to deal with every single month.
Yeah, now you know all about our cycle. Tom.
As I say to Crystal all the
Yeah.
time, this is what a feminist looks like.
It's true. It's true. He is a good
If you
feminist.
took the program, I'm very, very proud. Thank you for supporting.
I finished.
But no,
with
we're talking
Crystal
about the
Whitman.
other cycling. The other
Okay.
cycling, the one with 2 wheels.
Gotcha.
Yes. So strength for cyclist, and if I could have named it anything, it wouldn't have fit all in one sentence. It was like strength for cyclist, triathletes, runners, humans who want to move better, my avid spinners, whether it be in studio or out, obviously in studio or on the road. I was super excited about this, mostly just because I get to talk about being on my bike. And I'm sure you were both well aware, and the what did we call it again, Tom? The not tonal verse. What
I said
I forget what
Tonalvania.
Tonalvania.
Tonalvania. Love that.
I was
that.
I was
I'm
like,
definitely-
oh, I just
I'm
said
definitely
it in
going to bring it
moment.
up in class. I'm definitely going to bring that up in class.
Okay, well now we also get these. Well, hang on. Now I got an
Uh-oh,
in. So she's willing to threaten
Is it-
things I come up with. So you also, I need you to say that the little guy, it's a little guy front and back, the little muscle right in this guy. That's what we call him, little guy front and back. So you need to work that one in too. And Bavarian split squats. That's when
Oh,
you
I
add a
did hear that one.
little
Yes,
twist.
we did hear that one.
What else do I got?
Okay, those are your three.
Okay.
Those are your three. You only get 3 today.
Oh,
We're
the
gonna
little
limit- we're only
green-
going to limit you to those. Unless something else comes out, we'll save it. We'll write it down.
Okay.
But yeah, essentially, this was just my opportunity to be like, hey, let's talk about some bikes while we get to work out. Like you and the Tonalverse, Tonalvania already know that most movements and workouts, they're relatively basic and simple and follow just a very few kind of like, are you looking to build muscle? Are you looking to get lean? Are you looking, it's all pretty basic in the best way. So I just like to keep things simple. I'm like, hey, let's just move. Let's move in the way that, one, we know we're going to be on a bike a lot. We know we're going to be moving in one plane of motion a lot. So let's try to gear this to, how can we hit some of those movements, but also how can we add the variety, add a little bit of fun. I always love to add core work in because who doesn't love to get some core work in on our workouts. But anyways, the breakdown of Strength for Cyclists, it's a 2-week program and it's a 4-day split. And the biggest thing about this one, and I've talked about it so much in class, but also messaging with tons of folks in the OTC and via the DMs, is it's not an in-season program, even though it is only 2 weeks. It is not in-season programming because there's still quite a bit of volume. And myself, being in the very beginning phases of tri training again, I was doing this while also starting to tri train. And I was like, yep, she's tired. So one of those things to remember that, that's kind of a big thing to remember is when you're adding this, let's say, into your cycling, whether you're just riding on the weekends or whether you are starting to train for something, it's kind of like a preseason training. So we'll go for 2 weeks, 4 days a week. And by the way, you could do this once, twice, 3 times. Like, it works really well if you kind of add it on one after the next, if you don't get tired of me talking in class. But the breakdown for each week is going to go upper body, full body, core day, and then we have another full body to end the week. I absolutely loved day 1 because I was like, welcome to Strength for Cyclists. This is your upper body workout. And everybody's like, what?
Yeah, because that was my question. Like, is this
body?
going to be like all lower body stuff if it's for your bike? So
no.
Well, you do a lot. You do a lot of leaning with your.
You got to get the
body.
bike up on your car.
Well,
exactly. You have to you have to change your tires, and you need there's all kinds of stuff you have to do when you cycle. No, and I think that was the biggest thing that I wanted to really talk about in the program was we might be runners, we might be cyclists, but our legs aren't the only thing doing the work. Specifically in cycling, much like we look like at our computers and or over our phones all day, we're like hunched over. We're locked short on our front. We're stretched out long in our back. We're in that seated position. So again, like our glutes are on stretch. The front side, our anterior side, our hips are all tight and everything. So it mimics a lot of what we do every day. So the reality of the program is like, how do we get out of that? How do we fight against the movements that we're going to be in for 2, 3, 7 days at a time? Who knows? So that was really the goal. And that's why when I really thought about breaking it out, was like, how can we add in some upper body movements that are going to counteract our cycling position, and also that are going to help us and force us to stretch, which is what I like to call strength training. It's forced stretching, let's be honest. So the best way to stretch your hamstrings, do a deadlift, right? The best way to stretch your shoulders, get into a lat pull, right? Do that straight arm pull. Put tension on the muscle and just get into that stretch. So again, in a sneaky coach way, I'm like, hey, let's strength train, but also let's do a lot of stretching while we're at it. It's a really fun program. I love that it's bite-sized, that it's 2 weeks. And I mentioned it also, but if you want to take this into your season, if you are training for something, you can just kind of break it out and do 2 workouts a week, even though, they say you get upper full and then you get a core full. So you kind of get a little of everything, regardless on if you do it 2 days a week or 4 days a week. I just talked for a while. Sorry.
No, that's great.
So it sounds like it's good. Like, even if you're not
it's okay.
Well, there was more to the sentence. It was
it's mediocre. It's mediocre.
But it sounds like it's good. Like, even if you're not a person who bikes a lot, it's good. Like, if you're a person that sits at a desk a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
And again, we talk a lot about positioning. So it's that position of, if you are sitting at a desk, if you are hunched over your computer, or even riding in a car, if you're a big commuter, the reality is we start to kind of fall forward. So the muscles on the front side of our body are going to be really short, which means that we need to kind of open those. And the muscles on our back are really stretched, which means that we need to strength train those, right? And that's why we tend to, anytime we do posterior work, it's like open, like pulling through the back. We're like, oh, this feels great, because it's counteracting that movement that we're always in. Same thing with our glutes, right? We love to hate to train them, but they need it. They need strength training, and they're a massive piece of our core. So yeah, it's just good for anyone who has, 2 arms, 2 legs, a body, a brain, and really wants to work out and feel good.
Every time we have one of these conversations, I find myself sitting up straighter.
I know, right?
Like, gosh, I'm so slumped.
You're like, coach is here. Got to make sure I pull my shoulders back.
Get it together.
I was thinking, all my muscles are short.
So Ash, you mentioned how much you love to ride your bike. So what's your athletic background? I mean, have you been a bike rider like your whole athletic life, or how does that work?
Um, if you include riding a bike barefoot and jumping off of wooden built ramps in your front yard and down the street when you were a kid, yes, I am lifelong cyclist.
Okay. Okay.
No, I mean, I was always more so as a kid, as a quote unquote athlete, I was always the one that was like, can I go swimming? Can I ride my bike? Can I like climb the tree? It was just always like doing something and moving. And that transitioned into being on the swim team. That transitioned into my parents putting me in karate because they're like, you need a little bit of discipline and you need to calm down. So, those are my two big things as like a young athlete. I was a swimmer and I was a martial artist for almost 12 years. Getting into high school, it was kind of that same idea. It was like, what sports can I play? I also, when I started at a new school in 7th grade, the first sport, first season, first thing I could try out for was cross country. So I jumped into cross country just to like kind of meet people in my new school. That led into track, and I went to LSU for college. And if you're unfamiliar with Louisiana State University and their athletics, they're literally number one in almost everything. So becoming a collegiate athlete there was pretty tough. So I definitely went more on like, let's tailgate and then let's play murals during college. But with that, it was more so just like having fun and just going for bike rides, going for longer-ish runs just for fun to get out. And then once I moved to New York from New Orleans, my graduation gift when I moved was my first like official, I guess you could say, like road bike. It was actually a steel Surly, so it was not a fancy bike at all. In fact, it was pretty heavy. And that was my first bike. It was before, we had City Bike in New York. And I used to just ride around the city when it was wildly dangerous 13 years ago to ride your bike down any of the avenues.
Yeah, we've seen,
but I just loved it.
It's crazy.
It is crazy
It's
in New
wild.
York, and
Yeah.
and I know it's better because they have the bike lanes now. But as a
Yes.
person, like, oh my gosh, when you just like try to get in your car, you can get run over by a bike. It's insane.
Yes. Well, it used to be that the cyclists were always scared of the cars, and now it's the opposite. It's like you have to look out for all the cyclists, to be honest. I know I'm starting to age myself because I'm officially entering the era of, well, when I moved to New York back in my day, there weren't bike lanes. You guys better enjoy these bike lanes. They weren't always there. No. So, when I moved to New York was when I really kind of like leaned into cycling. I just kind of used it to not have to pay for cabs.
Oh, that's
And then, that was my only bike. So when I first signed up for a triathlon with a friend at my corporate job, again, it was like, get me out of this cubicle. What can I do to have fun? We started training for a sprint tri. My first sprint tri, my first Olympic tri were all on that steel bike.
wow.
So even racing, I was just kind of like, it's 2 wheels. This works. So I'll never forget, and by the way, I'll never forget riding 13 miles for the first time. I was like, whoa, double digits, guys. That was a ride. I went all the way to the top of Manhattan, and then eventually I had to come back. And truly, that is how you become a cyclist. You just start riding a little further. And then eventually a little further means you get to bring more snacks. Eventually a little further means that you get to stop and have snacks. So that's really kind of how I started doing it. And I'll never forget getting 100%. I always say it when I'm training, my bike's right here. I have to do a ride after this. I'm like, I'm just here for the snacks. For all the snacks in between. I ride more miles so that I get to have more snacks.
So how many snacks in a 450-mile
That's
race?
a good question.
Or
well,
ride?
that right, a lot of snacks, exactly. Yeah, right. But I'll never forget getting my first road bike, and that was when the first time that I like ventured over one of the bridges. So that's when I went over to New Jersey and did 9W and hit the market. But I'll never forget my first ride coming back was the first time I went 20 plus miles. And I think I slept for 4 days. I was exhausted. I was like, my tank was so empty. So a lot of people like, how did you become this crazy endurance athlete? I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of started going a little further. And that's really all it was.
Okay, but there's a big difference between
Yeah.
20 and 450. Like, so tell
The
us.
difference is 430.
Thank
I know.
you, Tom.
I know
Thank
that
you.
one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Good math
We won't tell anyone that you have your calculator out.
Oh, Ash is fun. But yeah, tell us about this ride, because you went through New York State. But I'm curious how you went from a little bit to 450 miles. That's a big jump.
Yes. I'll take it back just a tiny bit before we jump into the Niagara Falls. So I've met a few friends that are relatively big cyclists. And, the nice thing is, like, I tag along. And by the way, when you tag along with really great riders, your whole goal is to not get dropped. So you are fighting for your life on those rides, trying to stay with really great riders. So when they say iron sharpens iron, like, truly, that's kind of how you push yourself. It was right coming out of the pandemic. It was right when things were starting to open back up a little bit. And one of my really good friends, Matt, who is like that rider that I always try to stick with. One day I messaged him and I was like, hey, do you want to I want to like do a day ride. I've never gone anywhere. I've done little trips here and there, but I've never gone anywhere. He's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, do you want to go to Montauk? He's like, sure. I was like, do you want to go this weekend? He's like, sure. Okay. So it truly was like, let's meet at 5 a.m. by the Manhattan Bridge. And we just took off. And that was the first time, that was my first century ride. So it was the first time like I hit 100 miles, which I have the video. I was like in tears, so happy. But like I learned a lot, even on that one, like that day trip from New York to Montauk, took the train back that night. I learned so much about, nutrition, hydration, just really wanting to lay on the side of the road, but keeping my feet going every time I wanted to stop. But also that was the first time I really noticed the breakdown of I've been hunched over this bike for 6 hours. My wrists are really feeling the pressure of the handlebars. Like you start noticing all the little things. And that was before I did my first half Ironman. So that was before I did, racing in that sense. So it really led to a lot of like my understanding of longer endurance riding, and kind of conversations that we had in our program. But that was the first time I broke 100. So that gave me kind of this confidence of like, I can do this. I know what I'm doing. And my goal, long-term goal, by the way, obviously Tonal doesn't want me to do this because I would need 3 months to do it, but I want to ride my bike cross country. Like it's going to happen. So I got to give it some time before that happens. I was actually planning on doing it April of 2020. And then obviously that didn't happen. So pushed it back
the best
years.
time to do it. There were no cars on the road.
Yes. However, there was also nowhere to buy snacks. So that was the only issue.
Can't you just carry a little
at that
goo?
Point,
just a little goo in your
just
pocket?
a little. You need just a few goos for cross country, not much. Yeah,
I'm sure you'd be fine.
Yeah,
one goo per state.
Exactly. Starting to ration my goos. So I just kind of made this decision that I still wanted to have this, kind of extravagant goal when it came to cycling. I'd always wanted to do it. I had done my first half Ironman, and I was kind of in that phase of, both my parents got sick in the same year. So my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. My dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And it was just one of those like life moments where you're like, I need to get to enjoy this body while it's able to do these things. And just one of the challenges that I've always wanted is I've always wanted to tour on my bike. It's like, I literally want to ride my bike and then pitch a tent, sleep, and then get back on my bike. So I made this, I came up with the idea of riding from New York City to Niagara Falls, mostly because I've never been to Canada. I know. There's so many people like, what? Don't say that out loud, but I've never been to Canada. And I was like, how cool would that be to go to a place that I've never been and then literally get like my passport stamped and like go into a new country. It was like just this
on a bike.
That's
awesome.
On a bike.
I love
and so I started researching it, and then, there was a lot that went into it, but I did. I rode my bike from New York to Albany over to Niagara Falls, and then put my feet up on a dashboard and got to ride back home.
How long did it take to go? How long did it take to go 400?
So I took off an entire week. That was kind of my vacation in October, and I did it for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I raised money while I was doing it. So I took off on Saturday morning. And initially the trip, I was supposed to have some friends do it with me, and like all really great plans, it completely fell apart right before it happened. And people were like, I can't do the entire week, or something came up. And I was like, it's fine. Just maybe ride with me until here. And they're like, okay.
Hang on. I know.
I know.
I know how to read tone. You weren't like, oh, okay, it's fine. It was, it's fine.
No. The reality is, I was like, cool, because I wanted to do the trip by myself.
Really?
But my mom didn't want me to do it by myself. My dad didn't want me to do it by myself. No one at Tonal wanted me to do it by myself. So I understood that like the dangers of being alone and you're on a bike.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was just this thing that I wanted to do, and I wanted to like have everything go wrong and have to figure it out. And
what?
I don't know. I know.
Sounds like my first marriage.
I have questions though, logistically doing that.
Yes.
Like, there are so many things, like just from a safety perspective, that you have to think about. You're a woman, you're out there alone in the dark,
Yes.
trying to, that is dangerous. I don't know another way to say that. And that doesn't have to be, and it's obviously other people that make it dangerous, but like, what did you do to protect yourself, if I may ask? And if you don't want to talk about that is okay.
No, let's talk about it, because honestly, like, there have to be other women that want to do these types of things that don't feel very comfortable doing it.
The next class is called Strength for Gun Owners.
No, my knuckles, my fists are considered lethal weapons.
She's like, I got
my gun. She did 12 years of
exactly.
Listen, when I moved to New York, my dad said it. He's like, I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about anybody who tries to mess with you. So I'm okay. So, a few things. One, the biggest thing was I wanted to feel comfortable and confident in myself, understanding my surroundings, knowing my surroundings, choosing the right places to stay, which I did. All of my stops were planned out. All of my mileage was planned out. I knew exactly where I was going to be relatively when I should get there. I had some backup plans just in case. And then also, I was in constant communication. The wonderful thing about technology is that every single person in my life that I'm very close with had my location service. So I had friends call me and they're like, oh my God, you're already to Albany? Like, I noticed you were going across the bridge. Like, they could really follow me. And like, they had all that information. So they knew where I was staying. They had, contact information. But I did have a friend join me on day one. And it was wonderful because I was a little nervous about camping. I found this really cool vineyard that they allowed you to like camp on site while they were closed in the evenings. So, like, they had a little back plot where, they had bathrooms and you could just kind of like connect a few things and essentially sleep under the stars. So I found a few campsites that were like that. So I felt really comfortable because they were a bit more protected than if you were just sleeping on the side of the road. So that's not exact. I wasn't, literally, I wasn't getting off my bike and just sleeping on the side of the road.
I was literally, that's what I was picturing. I'm like,
319.
Okay, I'm tired. Boop. And I'm like, whoa.
That probably would have been nice, because there were so many times that I was like, I'm done. But I was like, I have to get 20 more miles in before I get to this campsite. So it also gave me that motivation to keep going and fight through that fatigue.
How far off the path were these places? Did they add like 10 miles each way to get to them? Or?
A few of them. So what I did was, I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's called the Empire State Trail. And essentially what New York State did is they reclaimed old railways and made them essentially these like beautiful paths so that hikers, cyclists, runners, walkers, locals, like anyone can kind of access this. And it goes through beautiful historic parts of New York that, in the industrial age were a very big deal. So especially along the Erie Canal, there were towns that had so much history behind them because they were the booming, part of industry that are now closed. So it brought me through some pretty cool stuff. But, the Empire Trail goes from New York. You can actually see the signs when you're here in the city along the river, which I see them when I run. It gets me excited to go, cycling again. But it goes all the way up to Albany and then it splits. So it goes over to Buffalo and then it goes up towards Montreal. So obviously I did the first part of it. I would camp, again, I had somebody camping with me day one. I had everything go wrong. and I was by myself when it happened. So I had my tire burst, not just the tube, like the tire itself burst. The morning of day 2. That was when I had 110 miles on my legs and I had to do another 86. I duct taped the tire. I changed the tube and duct taped the tire. So I rode 70 miles on a duct tape tire. I mean, again, just some crazy stories. Finally got that changed because somebody saw that I was like, when I stopped, they're like, noticed you had duct tape on the tire. I have an extra tire if you'd like one. I'm like, really? Sure. I mean, you'd be surprised the people that come out to help you when you kind of tell them what you're doing, and ran into this person in a diner kind of thing. So I got a new tire, riding day 2, got another flat. I'm giving you like the very short story. Ended up having to dismantle my bike, put it in the back of a cop car, and essentially get a ride just 2 to 3 miles up the road to my campsite because I literally I couldn't change it at that point. So, I mean, I had essentially everything go wrong, but everything went exactly how it was supposed to, which I loved. It was a lot of days in my own head, a lot of snacks, bungee cord on the front of my bike, you name it. Yeah, it happened. It was a good time.
Did you have to put like a pack on to like have all your supplies on your back while you rode? Like, I'm trying to picture how you.
Yeah. So what I did. Of course. So what I did was the Surly bike that I mentioned, the first bike that I got was actually the bike I rode. I've kept it with me all these years, and it was the perfect bike to take with me. So I had 2 panniers on the back. So that's when you kind of get that gate that goes over the back tire, and you have like the 2 big bags on your back tire. And then that kept a lot of just like my basic supplies, some food, parts of my tent. And then on the front of my handlebars, I had, it essentially looks like a Tootsie Roll. It just kind of like rolls up on both ends and you connect it on the front. I had 2 water bottle cages that I was able to fill those water bottles. And then I actually wore a hydration pack on my back. So that way I could just kind of drink as I was riding. And that, housed either like Snickers or something in the front pockets. They were readily available. So I had my sleeping bag, my tent, all my gear, some replacement tubes that I went through very quickly, unfortunately. And
and a lovely tour of the collapse of late stage capitalism.
Yes, but I'm kind of a history nerd, so I love stopping and reading and like getting to research all the towns. And
that's so fun. When we go visit other places, we always like we do something historical, like even if it's something that other people might like not think is touristy, and we always read about all the interesting things that happen. We always find that interesting. And Tom, mostly pop culture related, because Tom relates everything to pop culture.
Like, this is where this movie was filmed.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. But it's interesting to learn stuff.
It is.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
I'm always like, this is where they shot the opening credits for Facts of Life.
This is a typical day in the household. I'm curious though, that's a long time to spend by yourself. And so I don't know, maybe this just comes naturally to you, but like that's so many miles, so many hours of potential doubt of yourself. How did you talk yourself through those dark times? Because
listen, there were some very strange conversations that happened. There were some very odd songs that got stuck on loop in my head. I did listen to some audiobooks and some podcasts. I had a lot of time to like call people. So I'm sure I had friends that were like, hey, you good? I'm like, yeah, what you doing? I got like 20 miles. Do you just want to talk? They're like, not really. No, I'm good. No, there's, truly it was like all waves, all phases of mental battle. It was, this is awesome. This is so cool. I can't believe I'm doing this. And in the next thought, and then in the next breath, it was like, what am I doing? This is terrible. It's uncomfortable. It's about to rain. I'm hungry. My tire went flat, like all those things. I did it I'm very grateful that I'm healthy enough to do this. I did it to celebrate my mom being free of breast cancer. I did it to raise money. So like the entire time I was riding, it was truly like reminding myself, and I'm a Pisces, I'm a very emotional person. So it was reminding myself of the conversations. Like when my mom would call me and she was on her way to treatment, she's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, yes, you can. here's how we're going to do it. We're going to put the key in the ignition. We're going to turn on the car. We're going to put on our seatbelt. You're going to talk to me as you drive out. You're going to call me when you get into the parking lot. So it was taking myself through that exact moment that she had to go through, something that was really hard and uncomfortable and challenging, and coming out the other side and learning a lot going through all of that challenge. It was beautiful. And if I will say to anyone who is like, I could never do that, my response, you don't have to, but you could. You could ride 100 miles. You could ride 30. You could do your first triathlon. Anything that you could possibly be like, I don't know if I can. The response, you absolutely can. You just kind of have to break through a little bit of doubt. And you have to be willing to like learn a little bit, fail a little bit, and find a silver lining in it.
You didn't start with 450 miles, right? Like that's
correct.
You ended up, but people see that if they haven't done things like that, that sounds a lot more daunting, not to take away from your achievement, but that it sounds a lot more daunting because you haven't done 2 miles.
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. No, that's totally true.
Well, every marathoner will tell you, oh, you just have to go 1 mile at a time. But to someone who hasn't done it, you're like, yeah, that's a lot of miles you have to do at a time. You have to start somewhere. I'll never forget breaking 10 miles. I'll never forget breaking 30. I'll never forget going 100 miles. I mean, you do get there eventually, but you have to give yourself credit first and foremost for those little small steps, the little small miles, the little gains that you get. And then you just have to be a little comfortable with getting uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
I would guess in some ways hitting 10 miles for the first time was probably harder than doing 450.
Again, I'll never forget. So going across the GW and back for the first time, I got back and I was nauseous. I couldn't eat. I didn't eat enough. I didn't drink enough. I didn't even bring snacks that trip. You do have to kind of, unfortunately, you have to learn by making the mistake. And I will say, even based on this bike ride, like you only make mistakes once, hopefully, right? You're like, oh, and making sure I won't do that again. It's part of the process is learning. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a mechanical person? Because I am completely like, out of all the things, I can handle the rain. I could probably handle camping on my own, but like when it's changing a tire, I don't know.
And I can't help her.
I took a video when I had to change it for the first time by myself, and I was like, I did it. By the way, like, because at any other time my tire had to be changed, I wasn't alone. It was like, hey, Matt, could you help me change this tire, or like bring it to the bicycle store on the corner?
Yeah.
So again, it was that force, like, well, you're going to have to figure this out. And whether you're YouTubing it, you're calling somebody, you're doing whatever you have to do to figure it out, but it gets done. And, I mean, that's one of the things to really remember is that sometimes we're forced to learn those things. And sometimes that's the best option, because if we have the option to have help, we lean into that. And we're like, oh, path of least resistance. But at the end of the day, if you're like, well, either this tire gets changed or I'm sleeping on the side of the road.
Yeah,
exactly. So exactly. That's exactly what it is.
I live at a rest stop.
I'm curious how all the things that you've done, all the places you've been, and your 450-mile adventure, how does all that inform how you put together strength for cyclists? Like how do those two translate and come together?
I think the biggest thing to remember, and I say this in class a lot, when I sit down to do programming, it's the first thing I remind myself is like, keep it super simple. Like, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It can. We can really get into the nitty gritty, but there's just a few things to follow. And it's one, basic movement patterns. So it's, how can we do things that are going to make us stronger? How can we do things that are going to, help us with hypertrophy? How can we do things that are going to get our heart rate up? And then, the other thing is just adding variety. So it's thinking about all of your joints as a cyclist, but also just as a human. What do we all need? Well, we can all use a little bit more mobility, and we can all use a little bit more strength at the end of the day. So that's kind of when I broke it down, that was really just, if I'm riding my bike, what do I want to do strength training? Do I want to do a ton of legs? Probably not. Do I need to do a little bit of legs? Yes. Right. Do I want to stretch and do shoulder mobility? Probably not. But if Ash forces me to do it by adding like a single arm lat pull down, then cool. Like I got that benefit. Thinking of little things like wrist. I talk a little bit about it. Like when you do a bent over row and you're on the bench, a lot of times just like having your hand flex, like you're giving a high five, but it's bent. That position is really tough on the wrist, especially when you're cycling, because if you're on your hands a lot, like having that extra pressure is not fun. So like learning how to adjust when you're strength training, if you're overusing certain positions. For triathletes that are locked into aero bars, like how can we kind of work through some of the shoulder joints? You don't have to be a triathlete to need to like work through that shoulder joint. So keeping it simple, having a little bit of fun, and getting to talk a lot about application in the program. That's the biggest thing. So when people ask me, a lot of times they're like, I love this program. Like, can I just do it on my own? I'm like, absolutely. But you're going to miss all of my really fun, nerdy jokes, all of my stories about riding my bike. And you're also going to like lose that little light bulb moment of, oh, didn't think about that. Oh, didn't realize that this is going to help me in this way. So that's where taking the classes with coaches and live kind of give you a little bit of that application, which takes it from a workout to actual functioning movement.
I have definitely noticed that there's been an increase in the direction that you coaches give about like tips for how to do things, how to make sure you're in the right position, how to feel if it feels right, and how to like little tips and tricks. And I've noticed that you guys have increased the amount of those, and I greatly appreciate them. So
I love to hear that. I love to know that people somewhat notice.
Yes.
I mean, look, I can obviously speak for myself. I hope that I can speak for the other coaches, and that a lot of us have been doing this for a long time, and that really does come from that that experience of I've trained clients one-on-one, I've trained couples one-on-one, I've trained group fitness classes with young athletes like in their 20s. They can do 1,000 burpees. I've also trained clients that are like my mom and dad, who have limited mobility or just don't want to be hurt or injured. I've trained moms who are like, I need to raise kids, I can't hurt myself. So it really just comes from that experience and, getting to really picture who's on the other side of tonal. And I think that's the biggest thing. One that I miss getting to like see people and like talk about what's going on with them in person, but it has really helped myself. And I'm sure the other coaches as well. When we're standing on set and we're talking about a specific movement that we've done 1,000 times, there is someone who's walking up to tonal is like, what the heck is a neutral grip deadlift? Like, what are you talking about? And then, like the first thing you see is like this, like when they're doing a deadlift, you're like, pull your shoulders back. So it's, how can we take something that can feel really complicated and just water it down and give you the tiniest little nugget of a cue, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And you never forget it. It's like something that sticks with you. That's truly what I love, is like helping people have those light bulb moments. So that's really why I love the live classes and being able to teach classes rather than just like give programs.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, since you're an endurance athlete yourself, how you feel like strength training for endurance athletes is different than strength training for someone who's just focused on, maybe it's, they're just trying to get bigger muscles, because I feel like it's different.
I mean, it's definitely different. The biggest thing that differentiates when it comes to training is like, what's your goal? At the end of the day, do you want to put on muscle mass? Do you want to run faster? Do you want to get really good at push-ups, or do you want to swim faster? Are you just someone who's like, I know I need to work out. Everyone tells me, like my doctor tells me I need to work out. It's all over social media. I should do this, right? Like it's good for me. Really, it's apparently like, my explore page has all these people in fitness. There's all these digital connected things that like make me work out. The biggest thing is just ask yourself what your goal is. And by the way, that goal can change. That can be, I am doing a marathon this year and I am going to be a couch potato next. And that is okay to make that decision. And that's really the biggest thing, is you have to prioritize your goals, and you have to say, am I performing or am I preserving? Maybe when it comes to endurance athletes with muscle. So when it comes to endurance, specifically endurance athletes, doing hypertrophy and strength training pre-season is a great idea. The more muscle mass you have, the more you're able to work with when you're actually in sport. I say it a lot in class when we do hypertrophy. The best way to think about like muscle fibers. My dad loves Minions. I don't know what, like he like loves those. He thinks they're hysterical.
Oh my God,
but I
I
always
can't
think
stand
about the
them.
Minions. They're like, you know that like that one when they're like,
Yeah.
and all their eyes light up. I think about that as muscles. And when we do hypertrophy, you know, essentially we're just like adding Minions, and we're creating a bigger army of like, let's lift. And you know, as athletes, that's a good thing. You want to show up on race day and have all these Minions that are like, let's ride this bicycle. But
So
the reality is
when you're riding your bicycle, you're not taking along goos, you're taking along grooves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, I will go
I knew
with
it. I knew it. See, Tom sits in silence, like, and you know, when he's like, so let me get this straight. You're like, here it comes. This is going to be good. Getting my pen and paper so I can write it down. Essentially. Yes. I'm just building a bigger team. Just like ride with me on my bike. So for endurance athletes, that's a really big thing to remember when it comes to programming and like choosing what program to do and choosing kind of the goal and how you want to mix your strength training into your endurance training. The reality is the longer you go, the further you go, obviously, the more efficient your body has to be at giving you energy. So, you know, the further you go, the more expensive that energy is. You get more tired. So whether that's, you know, refueling, obviously with snacks, or that's just your body being a little bit more efficient with the energy that you have, that, you know, we're working with that, we're working with carbs. But you are going to have a little bit of breakdown in muscle mass. It's going to happen. However, it's what you prioritize. So it's, I really want to win this race. Fantastic. Strength training is not going to be your goal in season. If you're like, I just want to survive this marathon because my wife made me sign up for it. And apparently I'm like raising money for like an organization. I'm supposed to be the nice guy, right? I don't want to lose any of my gains. And that's a real thing. So it's like, cool. Let's do the bare minimum of endurance training. And let's maybe add in an extra day of strength and hypertrophy focus. So it really just depends. And that's where, you know, you kind of just have to make that decision. But, you know, I think the rule of thumb and a safe way to put it is strength train at least twice if you're endurance training, which is what I try to do. So there's some days I know I'm swimming. I know I can maybe add in a strength workout. Or if I have a speed workout, I know I can maybe do a strength workout later. But you always want to prioritize, like, what's most important? Is it the running or is it the lifting? Is it the biking or is it the lifting? And that can change. So those can flip-flop depending on what your goals are.
That is very good advice.
Absolutely.
Well, it is, because it gets complicated because people think that you can
Yes.
just like slap one label on it. Oh, this one workout will do whatever I want it to do, and we're all created equal. And
Listen,
all of our things.
no. Listen, I say all the time, I'm like, the perfect pants are not the perfect pants if they don't actually zip. Like, if they don't fit, they're not perfect. They're not for you. So, you know, it's just the best way to remember it. It's like, it has to be realistic for you. If strength training 3 days a week isn't working, 2 days is perfect. And I think that's the biggest thing. We do get caught up, myself, even all of the coaches, like we start really, you know, having these blinders on and trying to make this perfect workout routine and like the perfect amount of reps. But the reality is, like, if we're moving and if we're going with those basics, like we're going to get there. It is just prioritizing what you want to do a little bit more of.
And there are no magic bullets.
Yeah. Amen to that.
They're not. Just
So-
bicep curls and deadlifts.
Speaking of things that take a lot of mental energy, recovery. You suffered
Yeah.
a ski accident that you had to work yourself back from. Tell us about that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I was snowboarding. I was in Utah. It was my birthday weekend. It was also the weekend that I was like, I'm just hanging with my friends. I wasn't like going hard, wasn't doing a ton of powder, wasn't doing trees. I was like, let's just do these groomers and like have fun and enjoy the beautiful weather. when I first started snowboarding, the one rule that I learned, the one rule was never say last run, ever. Never, ever say last run. You always say 2 more, skip the last. And unfortunately, even though I said 2 more, skip the last, it was my last run. I was 3 minutes maybe from the bottom of the mountain, finishing it out, having a hot toddy and enjoying my birthday dinner. And I was in a hazard zone. So everyone's supposed to slow down. Unfortunately, there was a skier who decided they did not want to slow down. So I was blindsided by a skier straight lining down the mountain. Never saw him coming. Woke up in a toboggan with a neck brace,
Whoa.
Going down the mountain kind of thing. So I essentially flew backwards, landed on the back of my head. Wear your helmets, kids. Wear your helmets. Wear your helmets. Was knocked out. I was apparently talking on the mountain, but I don't remember talking on the mountain. I was cleared. The beautiful thing was 3 of my best friends are doctors. Those 3 best friends were also on the trip with me. So, I felt really comfortable leaving the hospital and being cleared. But I had, I've never had a concussion before. I didn't play any contact sports. So I thankfully had never had a concussion. The one thing I will say is it's absolutely no joke. I will go into watching football this year completely different. And when I think
this year,
yeah, you did. Yes,
it's awful.
It is. It's the worst thing you could ever have to deal with. Like, I've almost broken my hip. I've had like sport injuries, all those things. I'm like, give me any of those, because they have a clear and precise way of returning to sport and recovery. When you get a concussion, it's like you just throw everything out the window and you're like, well, let's just see what happens. Like, are you going to remember your coworkers' names? Let's just see what happens. Like, is that headache ever going away? Not sure. And that's exactly what it was. So I definitely, I lost my vision. So vision was pretty blurry. I completely lost my ability to walk, which is terrifying.
Whoa.
So for 2 weeks, I sat like in bed, eye mask, earplugs. I needed help, getting up, walking to the bathroom. I ate every meal in my bed. It was terrifying, truly.
I'm so
and
sorry.
It was, it's just one of those where they said the first thing I asked when I got into the ambulance was if somebody could call work and let them know I couldn't teach on Tuesday. Like, that was my biggest concern. I was like, my life is movement and I can't move. It felt like forever. It felt like I was never going to get back. It felt like that dark room and the quiet was never going to be loud and bright enough, but it did eventually. And, a month felt like a year, but when I look back already, that month is like it didn't exist and it flew by. And it was just, it's in the rearview. I don't even think about it anymore, but recovery was very different. And as you know, the recovery from a concussion was wildly different. So it was giving my body an opportunity to rest, my brain an opportunity to rest, and then being smart about how I came back was the biggest thing. Again, silver lining with everything, right? Now I have a completely different respect when people are in the OTC and they're like, hey, I had this injury. How do I come back? And my response is like, let's talk about it, because I totally get this. Christina's going to do the same thing coming back from surgery with her knee. Completely different injuries, but also still having to recover. So taking my time, understanding how to come back slowly, which is very, very hard when you're not used to going at a slow pace. And then having the right support system around you to remind you of that. I
don't know about you, but I feel like the brain being slow is the hardest part, because it's like you said about it's very clear cut what you need to do for your muscles and bones. But when it comes to, oh yeah, I don't know when you'll remember things again, or, oh, you can't see aspects, like there's a whole bunch of things in front of you and you can't see some. Well, maybe you'll get that back.
It's like your brain is working on parallel tracks, right? Like, as when you don't have a concussion, there are things you don't know, but you don't really know that you don't know them. But when you have a concussion, you're like, I don't know a thing, but I know I should know it, but I don't know what it is. I'm not knowing. And
I had moments where I couldn't. I'll never forget one of my coworkers. I needed to send her a message about something. And I could not for the life of me remember her name.
Wow.
And I sat here and I had a Post-it note, and it's something my doctor told me to do. And I just started writing out clues. And I was like, blonde hair, Utah. Like I had to start writing out, and I'm like, it's right there, but I can't think about it. And it was the first time that you're right. Like I had the realization that no one fully understands the brain. Truly.
Yeah.
We can talk about knee joints and tendons and ligaments and, how every organ in your body should function and exactly how it should function. But when it comes to your brain, it's amazing to me. It truly is amazing to me. So a whole new appreciation for taking care of my head.
Yes.
Even thinking about all the things that we eat and how they affect our brain. I mean, and now it's like everything I think about. When I'm on my city bike, I've got a helmet on. You name it. I'm like, nope. Brain's super important. Yeah.
One of my favorite
but it feels good to be back.
One of my favorite jokes in the world is from Emo Phillips. I think he's got a weird voice. If you ever see him, he does this weird kind of character, but he's a great joke writer. And he says, I used to think the brain was the most fascinating of all the human organs. And then I thought, I mean, look what's telling me that.
Tricks you. Yeah. It's got your number. It's got your number
Yeah.
always.
I wanted to ask about your upcoming program, Maintain Your Gains, because we've talked a lot about that muscle and needing to maintain. I know it sounds pretty straightforward, and I know we're about out of time, but I just wanted to get some.
Already?
I know.
No.
Sadly, it's been an hour. We have talked and talked and talked.
I feel like Crystal's a psychologist. Well, I see by the clock on the wall that we're almost out of time.
Your time is up, Ash.
They say that the final 5 minutes are where the really good stuff happens. By the way, in therapy, so
it's like working out. It's
let's
all
make this one good.
Set. It's all in that last set.
That's
right. Yeah. Maintain your gains. Look, we named it exactly what it should be, and it is. How can I do the bare minimum? No, it is.
This is right up my alley.
It is. I don't want to lose my gains. I don't want to lose any progress that I've made. This can be I'm in a phase where I just need a little bit of a break. Like I've been going really hard with certain programs. It can be, let's say I'm traveling or I just don't have like the effort to give. I've got a really busy time at work, or it could be something as simple as I'm starting to put a little more focus on like cardio or endurance training, but I don't want to lose the muscle that I've already built or any of those gains. And that's really what it is. So it's nice how it's broken out because you'll kind of always have a main lift. You'll have like one big compound lift, and then we'll add some accessory work in, which again, for stretching, love it. So you always have some like accessory work, a little bit of core work, and it gives you all the basics, but you always get kind of like your main lift in one block, and then we'll do a quick accessory, and then that's it. So it's really nice. It's a nice one to like keep in your back pocket. And like when I was really thinking about this, it's one to like always have. And, if you're focused on doing any of the challenges, so obviously we've got a lot of the challenges coming up. There's so many great programs that are 40 programs that are out there. And this is just a nice one to like add in if you're looking to do a bit more maintenance. You just want to sweat. You just want to lift. You want to check the box. You don't want to lose your streak. I know how hard it is to lose your streak. I lost mine. So, it's checking all the bare minimum boxes, which is really nice. But it'll still be fun. We'll use the barbell, which I love. And that's a good time. And
when will that be available for people?
Well, everything goes. So we'll do it live first. So you'll see it live on the schedule. That's going to be coming up in June. And then after that class, after we're done, obviously filming, we'll put a really cute bow on it. We'll take a nice little picture and be like, here you go, maintain your gains. And again, you could just like kind of save it, put it in your back pocket for the week or 2 weeks that you're ready to maintain.
Love it.
Awesome.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we let you go, let everybody know where they can find you on all the internets.
All of the interwebs.
Yes.
There's so many places that you can connect, and I'm like, there's too many. I can't do all those things. So obviously you guys can catch me on Tonal. I think, my classes are there sometimes. I'm back full time. Ash is back. So obviously classes, I'll see you guys on Tonal in the OTC. And then mostly on Instagram. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Always connecting with me at Ash Wilking. So this was really lovely. Truly, I'm so excited that we got to connect. I hope this is one of many because it was so fun.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And if on your way out, if you want to stop by the receptionist, he can get you set up for your next appointment.
5 stars.
Collect your copay.
5 stars. 5 stars. Leave you guys a tip.
Thank you.
Yes,
and I
thank you.
really appreciate your fun sense of humor. It's been just a blast.
Thank you guys so much.
So I guess that brings this episode to a close. Until next time, where can people find you?
People can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Crystal D. O'Keefe. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and the Tonal leaderboard at ClipOutCrystal.
And you can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online at facebook.com/Superset Podcast. And don't forget, you can also watch all of these episodes on YouTube. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep lifting.
Smart training, there you are, customized, make it right, AI, Form and Vibe, Superset will show you what it's all about, it's a tonal workout.
The Superset is made possible in part by support from Tonal.